All right. All right. What's up, guys? I'm here today with my cousin Marco. You can let us know if we look at like it all. He's a personal trainer from Mississauga, the best personal trainer in Mississauga, something like that. Tell us about that.
Agreed. Well, I mean, that's definitely subjective, but I did win a couple awards. You could argue they're more maybe popularity contests, but
Right.
my clients do actually really enjoy working with me, and I did actually win a couple awards. But yeah, I mean, realistically, out of hundreds of thousands of a population and a lot of personal trainers and exercise coaches, that could probably be debated. But yeah,
Yeah. But you literally like got something that says whether
yeah,
that's based on a
yeah,
vote that says you're like the
that's
number
right.
one
Yeah.
trainer. Yeah.
Yeah,
All
like
right.
a
That's
local
pretty sweet.
newspaper that has a poll, each year.
Yeah.
I've won that 2 years in a row. So
There we
for
go.
what it's worth,
I'm gonna title this video "Interview with the number one trainer in
yeah,
Mississauga." All
yeah,
right.
it's hilarious.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, like, look, so we're cousins. We this is long overdue making videos like this. And we got a lot to talk about, but we've also started the obvious stuff. Like, I'm a dietitian. You're a personal trainer, so what we do crosses over a lot. Obviously, we both care about health related things, but like, I'll tell you my side of the story, but like, tell me yours first. It's funny because we talk about a lot of things. We never really talk about stuff like this, but now that we're on this camera, we might as well.
True.
So like,
Yeah.
why did you want to get into training? Like, how did you end up wanting to do this? Give me some
Yeah.
insight there.
So and probably a lot of this you would know adjacently anyways, but maybe we wouldn't like delve too deep into some aspects of these things. But with this, you'll know the background for sure. But when I was in high school, so I was playing very competitive soccer, you know that.
Yeah.
I basically ended up at an Ontario level, youth level of soccer, which is very competitive. So traveling around Ontario, playing very competitive soccer matches. And early in high school, I ended up tearing my ACL. So that was pretty much a wrap. And so this was now about maybe 13-ish years ago.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
I know. No, it's a long time now.
Oh,
right?
man.
Yeah. And so at the time, I was a bit too young at like, let's say about 16 years old, 15, 16, to realize that it might have even been possible to completely rehab from that and take it ultra seriously like a pro athlete,
right?
And maybe salvage, a potential soccer career in the near future. But at the time, when I was that age, I kind of looked around me and had a general understanding of the outcomes of most soccer players who suffer a serious ACL injury, like a full grade ACL tear. And it obviously isn't very promising. And so I had a good rehab, but I took a little bit of time before the surgery wasn't immediate. And I took it seriously and started to rehab well. And that was basically the spark for me to want to understand more about kinesiology and, proper training that helps mitigate risk of injury and optimizing yourself physically. That was the spark. Like, I'll always tell people, I don't know about you. I'd like to actually know what you might have been like in this regard when you were younger. But like, I always say that until that point, as like a younger male, I didn't have any sense of like empathy. I didn't spend time thinking about other people. Mm-hmm. My thoughts were about fun with friends, some time with family, personal hobbies, soccer, video games, these kinds of things. Mm-hmm. And once I suffered that injury, my whole mindset started to shift as far as like empathy goes. And I started to really think along the lines that many other people have all sorts of injuries, or ailments or illnesses even, and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, this really sucks for me. This is a terrible feeling. I wish this didn't happen to me. But I also started to think along the lines that I wish these things wouldn't happen to others either.
Right.
And I just developed an obsession with understanding the science behind training. And I knew that this is what I wanted to do ultimately, to help proactively prevent those kinds of things and get people in really good shape. Because I also cared about that as well.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll say a few things. I mean, first of all, I remember that when you got injured, I know it's something you've been like dealing with now for like over a decade, which is crazy. And I've been in a similar situation. When I fell in love with soccer, because my story is, kind of like yours, maybe a little bit different. Like, I wasn't particularly into nutrition stuff when I was younger. It affected my quality of life. I was underweight, dealing with a lot of issues. And then I fell in love with nutrition, but it took me a very long time to learn how to utilize it properly. And so like the role I want to fill is shortening that gap for other people, basically. And part of the consequences of my lack of understanding of nutrition back then was I got a stress fracture twice, actually, in my foot. But I was like at the peak of my love for soccer. And now, like, I'll be honest, like, soccer's been one of those things for me. Like, I'm not the best player, but I would say over some of my darkest days over the last 5-10 years, like, soccer's been one thing that's helped me. So like the idea of not playing that's tough. You know what I mean? So like, I can appreciate that aspect of it.
Yeah.
But I remember I had a stress fracture, and it was a 4 to 6 week injury, but I was like, I was too reliant on soccer in that time of my life, and I didn't give it the time. And like, I ended up missing a whole year, but I ended up getting a second stress fracture later, and I learned my lesson. This is a very important message for young athletes out there, and now, as you know about me, like I'm pretty afraid to get injured. So like I spend more time trying to make sure I don't get injured than I do playing soccer in a way. Like I'll do yoga, foam rolling, all this other stuff. And I'm not like an expert to the extent that you are in physical fitness, but like just like you have some passion for nutrition, it carries over myself. But like I 100% resonate with that, because when I had my stress fracture the first time, it was a harsh lesson. Second time I learned, I rested properly for the period of time. I came back, and knock on wood, I haven't sustained an actual significant. And funny thing is, stress fractures for young athletes are associated with vitamin D. You know what I mean? That's another story. Vitamin D supplements, vitamin D is only found in fish, and all that people eat fish, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, it's very, very interesting stuff from that perspective. But it's funny because like this is a serious conversation, but like most of what we talk about is fun and games. You know what I mean? And one fun thing about you that people need to know, and I'm gonna talk about something else, and then we're gonna get to is that you don't drink coffee, right? Let's just get that out there. You don't drink coffee.
Very rarely, and if I do, it's in small amounts.
Okay. So when's the last time you personally had coffee? Because you know how I am with coffee now, so how I used to be.
Yeah, for sure. Actually. So it's more along the lines of, because Vanessa, my significant other, she does drink coffee. And so it's more that if she makes some for herself, if it's just around in a cup, I might have a sip of it here and there type of thing. I'll never go out of my way to make my own coffee. And only on rare occasions in the past, when we would play soccer together, I would maybe partake and grab a bit of a coffee and have a bit of it as part of like caffeine. Obviously there's a performance benefit to caffeine, and we were in our early mid 20s or whatever. So, me and you're a few years older, and by that point, I think you started to really get into coffee by then. I think do you remember when I first got
I
do. I don't remember the exact timeline, but I remember, like, I don't remember the dates, right? But I remember you going from basically being like a coffee virgin of sorts to like going deep.
Now I'm like on 2 cold brews a day. Like I'm still high off one from earlier. Now like coffee is like
it's like off the deep end.
It's like integral to my to like what I do on social, like to my daily life. Like my cold brew in the morning, I think it's because like my office was beside a Starbucks, and I think like I started, like, I don't know. It's funny. Another funny thing is that's different between us. But before we get to that, we got to talk about coffee. One of the things that coffee does, and and right now we're having a very serious conversation, but usually the manner of our conversations is nonsense. And so one of the things that coffee does, and I actually had a video on this a couple days ago, it stimulates bowel movements in a lot of people, and myself included. And you and I will definitely exchange jokes about that. And I know I sent you a text earlier today that I dropped one, like a artist dropping a new album. So that's kind of the manner of discussion that we normally have. But like, speaking of coffee, that also like links to like sleeping habits, and like you and I are like completely different when it comes to sleeping habits. True. Tell me, what's your normal bedtime and wake up time right now?
Well, the funny thing is, even though we have very different sleep habits or patterns, my sleeping pattern, which you might actually be a little bit surprised at, this is something we don't directly talk about a lot, but we have a sense of each other. But my sleeping pattern is probably not as healthy or optimal as one would think from the outside. So I do tend to, especially these days, to go to bed quite early. And part of that, again, just happens to be a byproduct of actually Vanessa, because she just relentlessly goes to bed early.
How early does she go to bed?
She goes to bed, like, she'll kind of shut it down usually around anywhere as early as like 7:30 p.m. she'll get into bed and
Yeah.
like maybe read a book or watch a TV show or something, or maybe as late as like 9 o'clock. But like beyond 9, she's definitely, ready for bed type of thing.
Okay.
And
That's hilarious compared to me.
I know, yeah.
Yeah.
I do like that quality in someone. Actually, it is good, and it helps ground me a little bit more, because if it was someone who was like a night owl, or
Yeah.
it's
hard to escape that lifestyle.
dabble in the dark side a lot more, it would be like I would engage in that, and I would, it would be rough. So I do find myself going to bed early. Here's the context for me though.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I had severe issues with valuing sleep. Like I still
have those issues.
I know, yeah. I cared too much about other unnecessary things.
We'll discuss those in the future, I'm sure.
Exactly. Of all sorts, all kinds. And yeah, I mean, at some point, which we can get into another time as well, but basically at some point I started to prioritize that. And I've had different stages or different time periods in my life where I've prioritized sleep or not prioritized sleep, where I would have periods where I would be legitimately going to bed between 1 to 3 a.m. versus 9:30 to like 10:30, 11 p.m.
Yeah.
Right. Very drastic differences. And I'll go on long stretches of either one. These days, it's more along the lines of earlier nights, but for other reasons we can get into.
Yeah.
I often wake up in the middle of the night not being ready to go back to bed. So I'll stay up and engage in.
I have that issue as well. Eh? Like, I wonder if that's genetic to an extent, because one of my biggest, not fears in a sense, like I can fall asleep relatively easily, but if I wake up going back to bed, especially if it's on the tail end of the sleep cycle, the last hour or two, which can be decisive. Like if I'm only sleeping 5-6 hours, like if I wake up 4 hours in, like that extra hour is a significant extra percentage. So that's my biggest issue. Like a couple nights ago that happened to me. And I do wonder sometimes, like if, whether it's just genetic, I've never really slept that well. Obviously the high caffeine intake probably doesn't help, but it's like, I don't know. It's like, it's funny because even though behavior change and stuff like that is all like what I engage in daily with other people. For myself, like I don't see myself stopping drinking a coffee in the afternoon. It's a weird thing. You know what I mean? It's just like,
that's a good question. Probably that's the type of thing, trying to figure out what percentage of something is genetic versus environmental. That's like the age-old question that's hard to decipher for practically anyone. For me, I know that based on my history with sleep, I find that I need about 8 to 8.5 hours of sleep at the most to get a really good night quality sleep and function really well. Compared to other people that can feel like they'll sleep 10 to 11 hours. Like I used to have friends in university that would like legitimately sleep 10, 11 hours easy. Like I couldn't even understand how someone could sleep that long. I couldn't even wrap my head around it.
I might sleep that long, like once every 2 months, like on a Sunday, like on my day off if I'm lucky.
Yeah. Now I know for me, the reason why I wake up, and we've talked about this for sure. Yeah. The reason why I wake up often is because I have this obsessive mindset revolving around like statistics and math related equations that relate to a game that I took. I got back into.
Just in case people think we're talking about something, and it's a video game called Diablo 2 that we both grew up playing. Yeah. I'm sure we're gonna discuss it. And I'm sure many people. I mean, whoever's watching this, if they grew up in our generation, they'll know what that is. But nothing untoward. It's just a video game, but it can definitely capture. It can capture minds and
there's a lot of addictive. There's a lot of addictive qualities about Diablo 2. That's why it was insanely popular, and it actually sparked a whole. As far as I understand it, it basically sparked a new genre, like a certain subtype of games. Right. And this came out, Diablo 2 anyways, I think came out about 21, 22 years ago. Yeah, and I remember playing it as a little kid.
Came out in 2000.
Okay, so there you go. And like then at some point when I grew up, like I didn't even think about it. I just moved on with other stuff, right? Life, school, etc. Even other games that you would play with friends and stuff. This is natural for, people like us.
Yeah.
And then somewhere along the way in recent years, you get back into it, it's still popular. It's still a popular game. And the part of it that's so appealing to me is not even so much the playing of the game, but you can really get deep into a rabbit hole with like build calculations and equations and like game mechanics, and I love that. I'm a math person at heart. I always had an obsession with numbers even as a kid. I had an obsession with numbers even as a little kid, and that literally pulls me to the computer, not to play the game, but to like.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying.
Make calculations. You've seen all kinds of stuff I've shared with you, like pages of stuff people wouldn't.
And the thing is, for me, like I always like in my head, because I used to get good test scores in high school. I was very good at testing and memorizing things, and like I always credited that in the back of my head to like to Diablo, because you'd have to remember all the items, because I had a very sharp memory of all the items and stats. Maybe now less so, but that my good memory carries over for other things, and that actually is going to lead me to my next question, which would be a little more fun. But I always credit it for that, but to just the item memorization and just remembering the stuff and it was crazy. But I want to ask you this. I think this is gonna be a funny question, because I have mine in my head. I can go first if we need, but we might as well share a funny memory we have of each other going back as long as you want. I mean, I can go first so you think about it. If you can, it's on the spot, but the one, and this will be totally appropriate to share.
Totally.
The one that I have in mind is we were playing, and you'll remember this.
I'm thinking of the same.
I wonder if you remember, but it's we were quite young and we were playing a video game called
I remember this.
Sega Soccer Slam. I don't know why this came to my mind. That's a great game, by the way. It's like, for anyone who doesn't know, it's like
it was a sweet game.
It's the soccer equivalent of NFL Blitz, and if you don't get that, well, whatever, you don't get it. That's fine.
I don't even know what NFL Blitz is, but if it's similar, then
it's like a cartoony extreme like pseudo football, just like how that's what Sega Soccer Slam is. Like that Mario Super Strikers, I think is a hack of Sega Soccer. Sega Soccer Slam came before, and it's better in my opinion. But and it is destroying you at that. You were crying.
True.
And that was just. And I've seen you cry since. We've all gone through some shit, but you cried then.
For sure.
I remember that was hilarious.
I have no shame in admitting that when I was a kid, like you would know this, I was a sore loser. I was competitive, and I was, emotional, a bit of a hothead at times. Like I wore my heart on my sleeve type of thing. Like, and if I was getting trounced, sometimes I'd be the one doing the trouncing in a lot of other game situations or soccer, right? Things like that. Like, but to be the nail instead of the hammer, that's not fun. And that would happen on occasion. And that was the case there. And I for sure I'm not surprised I broke down. I feel like, was that is the same or different instance where I kind of vaguely remember, but I was a bit young, where I basically wanted to like attack you on, like, I think I physically tried to, like, it was somewhat playful. It wasn't like literally aggressive, but I feel like something happened game related and I got frustrated and like it got a bit physical.
Really? Oh, I don't know if I remember that. Yeah. That's funny. I might have just grabbed your back or something, and I would have been really little and like I don't know. It was nothing like ill. If it happened, it was nothing with ill intent. It was probably
definitely it might have even just been me fucking around and getting physical as like a little kid, right?
Right.
But I do think there was something like that, and it probably stemmed from like a game situation, probably.
Yeah. No,
I also remember, which is a different instance where I'll never forget. You, me, and another cousin of ours played Pokemon in like the loft area of your parents' home, and that was a nostalgic memory too. That I can't remember which version. I think it was like silver and gold or something like that, and it was just a really nostalgic reminder.
I remember us playing. Yeah, I remember on the Game Boy at Harborfront. You may not remember this because you would have been really young, both of our families. And I just remember having the original Game Boy and you were there. And I don't know if we did a trade, or I didn't even know if you even had a game, if you were even old enough to even play things.
I might have had.
I remember that day vividly. That must have been like, the crazy thing is that could have been 25 years ago or something. That's crazy.
It might have actually, no, it would have had to be it would have probably been no more than 21-ish years ago, probably.
Right. Yeah, maybe 21, 22, 23-ish, something like that.
Yeah, at the most. Because I don't think I would have I wouldn't even have been able to use a Game Boy 23 years ago.
Right.
I think.
Yeah.
But yeah,
No,
it
I
was
don't know. I don't know that
something
you
like
had
that.
it. I had it. I may have just been
Okay.
into it at the time. I remember it as the context of the day. But anyway, it's funny.
Yeah.
Like what I'll tell people is like it's funny because we've come on here and we're deciding to like record these types of videos, and like this is probably the most serious conversation we've had. But what hopefully we can do in the future, like because you know we watch like one of the things we do together. We'll watch like UFC events, and we have pretty hilarious commentary. So what we're gonna try and do going forward, and if anyone who's watching this, if you enjoy this like kind of manner of conversation, if there's specific topics you want us to talk about in our careers and our lives, let us know. Generally, we actually our chats involve like a lot of laughter and humor, but what I've learned,
but they also involve all kinds of things too.
Yeah. But what I've learned, this is like one of the most serious conversations we've had. Not that we haven't had serious conversations, and it's not that serious either, by the way. But it's not like when you're like I guess not choreographing, but when the camera's on, it takes time to like be normal. You know what I mean? It's like not because me, my baseline, like it's unusual for me to say something serious consecutively for more than 5 minutes.
True.
Realistically, right?
Yeah,
like,
true.
Think about me, like so it's kind of it's kind of funny.
And in case people get the wrong idea or whatever, like okay, 95 to 99% of our conversations are like lighthearted in nature,
right?
And silly goose kinds of things, but. No, I mean, I wouldn't define this as like a serious conversation in that last percentile. We've had, on rare occasions, we've had, maybe in the future, we might delve into, more personal topics, perhaps if we go that route with some things. But yeah, I mean, we've had actually like legit, serious personal, we divulge some personal things to each other, and this is not really of that nature necessarily, but yeah, and in the future and stuff, we might get into all kinds of stuff. Who knows? But yeah,
we're definitely gonna have to. Today was kind of like a grab bag. We touched on like our main, our careers, soccer, caffeine, sleep, sports, video games, whatever. But we're gonna have some fun stuff to talk about in the future. And we're gonna we're gonna be recording a lot of videos. This is good. This was like a good time. We have so much to talk about. So we'll end this one here, and we'll keep the fun and games going next time.
Hell yeah. Sounds good, man. All right. We'll talk soon.
Peace.
All right. Okay. Peace.